All right. Welcome to inspireWord, everyone. It's Thursday. We got an incredible kickoff to the weekend. Awesome guest. We're really excited about having a conversation with Kristan Hawkins. First, want to thank Solidarity Health Share, of course, and Catholic Order Foresters for their support and allowing us to bring these inspiring conversations to your living room. Thank you to everyone for joining. Please make sure you chat us questions during this conversation, and please go while during the conversation or immediately after to inspireword.com to share this conversation in a couple of days that Kristan's about to do with us, and send it to all your friends and family that weren't able to join live tonight. So without further ado, let me bring in Kristan here in about a second. Kristan Hawkins, welcome to inspireWord, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me tonight.
Awesome. Well, listen, we're excited to talk to you. First, how have you been spending this quarantine? Someone like you with your agenda, it's probably been a little bit different.
Well, my kids have certainly been happy that I haven't had to get on any planes. And I think my husband has been as well. But we've been actually really busy at Students for Life. So a lot of late nights and long weekends, pivoting all of our efforts from the campuses digitally to computers.
Wow. Well, I want to get into that. But first, thank you for allowing Catholic speakers, inspireWord, and our entire network into your privacy, your own home, to get this exclusive access with you. For those that may not be familiar, which I'm probably few, but with your background, can you quickly tell us who you are, how you came, basically quickly tell us the road from all the way through up until becoming the president of the Students for Life of America?
Sure. Well, I was invited by a woman at my church when I was about 15 years old to come with her and intern with her at a pregnancy resource center in Steubenville, Ohio. And that's really where I got my start in the pro-life movement. I spent a summer there interning and kind of following her at the pregnancy center. And I went to my high school and I started a pro-life group. And I got very involved in local political efforts within my state Right to Life committee. And that's kind of how I got my start, speaking out, holding, press conferences and protests in my home state of West Virginia against abortion. And I ended up going to college thinking I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to overturn Roe versus Wade. And God had a different plan, though, for me. I actually got involved more and more into politics and kind of followed him there. And it's from there, from working with the President Bush campaign in 2004 to where I'm at now, is all really because of that political kind of journey I was on, and the friendships I made and the connections I made. Shortly after I graduated college, I worked for the Republican National Committee and then the Department of Health and Human Services. And then a friend had called me who I'd worked with at the RNC and worked on the campaign, and said he had heard about a group of students who wanted to create a national organization to unite pro-life students across the country and really multiply their effect. And so I was the first person they called, and I was the one who raised my hand and agreed to launch this endeavor in 2006.
That's awesome. We already got a question in from a Katrina over in Florida. She'd like to know about your discernment about being a lawyer. So let me actually help or actually tack on that question. There's a lot of young folks probably watching this, and what inspireWord is about inspiring, becoming the best person you can be. How hard was it knowing or feeling that you want to become a lawyer to the point where you had to pivot and not become a lawyer? And do you remember that exact moment, or was there one?
It was more of a gradual thing for me. I think sometimes my dad still wishes I had gone into law school. I think I confuse a lot of my family. They're not entirely sure what it is I do. They know it's against abortion, but they don't understand how I support our family doing this work and this ministry. So, I think it was a gradual kind of realization for me that I could have more impact. And I was being called, and I had other gifts and special gifts in organizing. And that was really kind of, I think, a journey for me of working on the political campaign and realizing I'm pretty good at this. I could do this. And then thinking I can apply this to the pro-life movement. We can do something different in the pro-life movement that hasn't been done before. And so certainly we need a lot of pro-life lawyers. We rely on them a lot at Students for Life. In fact, I think we launched a lawsuit today with some pro-life lawyer friends of ours at the Alliance of Defense of Freedom. So we definitely need pro-life lawyers. I think, but it's an understanding and thinking about where your unique gifts and strengths are, and where God's really kind of leading you. I think that's one of the most um, interesting things for me, is to look back on the journey. I was actually, this past weekend, my mom dropped off boxes of photos from the quarantine. She's been cleaning out her basement, and we won't let them come in the house, and they can only wave to the kids from the back porch. But I Cloroxed the box off and opened up, and there was all these pictures, and it was really interesting to kind of go through these pictures and see, how I got my start in the pro-life movement to where we are today, and to see just kind of the Holy Spirit kind of just leading you to where you need to be.
Right. Well, you mentioned about being with your family. I want to talk about that for a minute, because there's probably a lot of mothers tuning in watching this. And how many kids do you have now? You're a mother and a wife, 4 kids. As we said, inspireWord's always about bringing uplift and good messages of inspiration. As if I remember, you have 2 kids that maybe have had experience with cystic fibrosis. Is that right?
Yes, 2 of my children, my oldest son Gunnar and my youngest child, my only daughter Gracie, have CF. Actually, tomorrow starts CF Awareness Month in May.
Well, then no better time. What would be your advice to mothers that are new to this, maybe just had a child with a special needs or a special situation like that, and what have you done maybe to kind of help lead your kids?
Well, I mean, I think it's difficult for kids when they kind of hear, when you have to tell your child that they have cystic fibrosis. You have to tell them that they're different than everybody else, and that they have to do more medical treatments and take pills and go to the doctor and get on the planes and do the clinical studies, and then they have to be in the hospital for multiple weeks. It's hard, and the question is, I've been asked by both of my children now. Gracie actually just asked it for the first time just this past week. Why did God give me cystic fibrosis?
Oh,
Why don't my brothers have cystic fibrosis? Why don't you have cystic fibrosis? And so it's very hard. But I'm very real with them, of saying, I don't know why God gave you cystic fibrosis. I don't know why He didn't give me cystic fibrosis. But it's going to be okay, right? It's going to be hard, and you are going to have to work harder than everybody else. But everybody struggles in their life, and everyone's going to have to overcome something difficult in their life. And your struggle is going to be cystic fibrosis. We just know what your struggle is going to be. So I think it's important to be real and have real conversations with your children. And obviously they have to be age appropriate, but I do believe in being real. The hardest question I've ever gotten, at one point, Gunnar had asked me if he was going to die, if cystic fibrosis was going to kill him. And so I was in the kitchen, I remember that, and I kind of paused, and I've been waiting for that question, kind of dreading that moment. And I said, you know what, you may die from cystic fibrosis, but you may not. And I can't answer that question. I'm not God. We don't know what's going to go on in your life, and none of us know, how long we're going to live. And then, then I kind of went into a conversation with them about, the quality of your life. How you live your life, in whether or not you had a good or bad life, is not judged by the number of decades you're on this earth. It's not measured that way. It's about what you did when you were here.
Right. Well, you're definitely walking the walk in that case, Kristan. We're talking with Kristan Hawkins. For everybody that's joining in, you can find this conversation on inspireWord.com for many, many years to come. Kristan, again, thanks for being with us. We've got more questions coming in, but I kind of want to get over to Students for Life of America. And thank you for that personal motherly advice. So we'll probably be jumping around as more, questions come in. It gets fun. It gets random. I was told that you guys are kind of doing a going online, so off of campus type of stuff. How have you guys reacted to this coronavirus situation? And what would be your advice to other nonprofits and folks in the same situation?
I think I was given a lecture via webcast last week, I believe it was, for Oregon Right to Life, and it was an event for nonprofit leaders. And I think my greatest kind of advice for anyone who's leading a ministry or nonprofit right now is, you've got to think outside of the box, and you have to be willing to fail. Willing to try something new, not willing to kind of just give up and say, I don't know what to do. Donations are going down, and we're just going to shut our doors. We're just going to stop offering our services. We're going to stop offering our programs until everything calms down. God has blessed me with a very stubborn spirit, let's say. So as soon as kind of this hit us and we realized that we were going to have to cancel all of our spring tour plans, the hundreds of campuses we were going to visit, cancel everything, I immediately went into pivot mode. What is it that we're doing that we can bring online? What is it that we haven't been doing that we could do now that we're not on campuses? And that is why I have been busier than I've been in years, launching new programs, getting things built that we've been delaying doing. And I'm like, why haven't we been doing this? So I think my advice to groups is to kind of be willing to think outside the box and be unafraid to fail. I was on a call today with one of my consultants and strategists, and we tried something a couple weeks ago and we've had some success, but I'm like, I don't know if it's worth it, if organizational funds to continue, but we did learn something from it. But maybe we can take the technology we built here and maybe we can apply it somewhere here. And so I don't think what we did was a stunning success. But then when I think about the applications in a couple of months and then a couple of years, it actually could end up being a turning point for us. But I was, willing to throw something up against the wall and try it. And maybe it wasn't a huge success, but it is something we've learned from, and we actually gained some valuable knowledge from that process. So I think you've got to be unafraid to do something.
I found a lot, and while you're talking, it just reminded me of your earliest story when going through and starting a few groups, and now what do you have, like 1,200 groups in all 50 states with Students for Life. When you first started, if I remember, not that people laughed at you, but people kind of laughed at you, and as from if I remember that correctly, can you kind of talk about how you overcame that and you kind of believed in it and kept going, and maybe walk us down that journey of how it became what it is today?
Sure. Yeah. When we launched Students for Life, I remember I would go to some of the pro-life leader meetings in Washington, D.C. And I was so excited. These were my heroes that I had read their books and seen them on video. And everyone, was very gracious to me and say, well, this is, good for you that you're starting this endeavor. But and then the next breath it always was, but go ahead, you feel free to contact me when you need a job. And so no one really had faith that what we were setting out to do of launching these pro-life student organizations, unifying the movement, going on the offense on college campuses, that it was actually possible, because it had been tried before in the past and it had failed. And so, once again, God blessed me with this very stubborn spirit of those comments, not meaning to be, rude, just folks just genuinely like, oh, I like your spirit, come work for us. But it really served to, I think, to motivate me to make sure we succeeded at Students for Life.
That's great. Well, I know that's a really awesome story, and that everyone everywhere needs to remember it. If you don't believe in yourself, no one will believe in you, and it takes people like you to keep a dream alive and the persistence. And now look where you are now. Again, 1,200 plus chapters in 50 different states, all represented for an amazing cause of the Students for Life of America. So fast forward to today. I was notified that you guys have C4 training and preparing people for the election. Can you talk about that a little bit? And then we're going to get into the fun part, which will probably spark a lot of questions about the election. I have some ask you advice on. But first, the training. What are you guys doing right now, training especially young people for the upcoming election?
Yeah, so our C4 sister organization, Students for Life Action, launched last week, I Vote Pro-Life First. You can go to ivoteprolifefirst.com and sign up right now, anyone of any age, to join our call squad or our door squad. We are partnering with Catholic Vote and the Susan B. Anthony list, making phone calls. Every night we're making phone calls right now into key presidential and U.S. Senate swing states. We train you. You use our system. So all you need is a laptop to make these phone calls. We give you the list, the script, and then we're also going to be going door to door in key Senate, presidential swing states, and also in some of these state legislative races as well. And that's what's really exciting, to me, is we've got these 1,250 50 groups, probably be over 1,300 Students for Life groups across the country. But what we're really training them for is this day after Roe. When Roe v. Wade and Doe versus Bolton are reversed, the decision of abortion will go back to the states, and we will have 50 simultaneous battles for the legality of abortion. It won't just be in Washington, D.C. right now, where a lot of folks think the battle is right there. This is going to be 50 battles. At that moment, we are going to need a trained army of folks who are ready to fight in every state capital, to pass laws, to lobby, to run for office. And those people are going to come from the pro-life generation.
Absolutely. And along with that, we got another question regarding chemical abortion. The question is, what is Students for Life doing to address that issue? And what do you see may come of that?
That's a very good question. Thank you to whoever asked that. You're plugged into what's going on in the movement right now. I had an hour-long conference call today about our chemical abortion battle plan. So we were fighting for 3 years in California to stop what finally became called SB 24. It passed, and it was actually signed by the governor this fall. This law forces now, as of this January, every state university in California to dispense the abortion pill, RU46, on college campuses. It allows Planned Parenthood and actually funds Planned Parenthood to go on the campuses to be these consultants. We won twice for 2 years in a row with a pro-choice Catholic governor, but it wasn't until the current governor, Governor Newsom, signed this into law. Now we're battling this in Massachusetts and New York. And we also have the national push. So the abortion lobby has been, really trying to increase their number of chemical abortions. It's much cheaper for them to have chemical abortions. They don't have to worry about the disposal of the children. They know second and third trimester abortions are largely unpopular. The vast majority don't like second and third trimester abortions and think they should be illegal. So they know if they can get all abortions in the first trimester, if they can get them to be chemical, you don't have to convince a doctor to dismember a human being. You're just simply prescribing a pill, and she's just sitting on the toilet and not looking and flushing. So it changes almost their sales pitch to the doctors. It's easier for them to retain staff. It's easier for them to operate. Now they're using this COVID crisis, the abortion industry is using this COVID crisis to push for it. Say, this is why we need webcam abortions. This is why we need to be able to mail women these RU486 pills, because they're not able to get their abortions right now. So about 21 state attorneys general, led by my attorneys general here in Pennsylvania, they've called for the FDA to loosen the federal REMS, the regulatory measures, the safety measures on RU486. And so there's a SAFE Act in the U.S. House that's just been introduced to codify these federal REMS. We've been calling on folks to tell their members of Congress to codify the federal REMS on RU486. I mean, these are not every abortion is dangerous for a child because it ends a child's life. These RU486 abortions are also very dangerous for women. Women bleed out, they hemorrhage to death, and much higher likelihood that she'll end up in an emergency room after ingesting this pill. She doesn't go to the abortion facility. She goes to the emergency room. So there's a lot of really, really bad things that RU486 is doing to women's bodies beyond just killing another human being. But the pro-life movement, I think we have to get a little bit more savvy in talking about first trimester abortions. Why first trimester abortions are as equally as wrong as second and third trimester abortions. It's easy to talk about second and third trimester abortions when you can point to an ultrasound, when you say, clearly this child can survive outside the womb. This child shouldn't be killed. It's a harder conversation to talk about those first 12 weeks. But the reality is every single abortion that's committed in America today stops the beating heart of a human being, even these chemical abortions.
Right. Well, I could have listened to you all night, Kristan. I didn't want to interrupt because I can get in your zone, and it's really awesome.
Time on this.
Oh, I love it. I don't want to stop it. So with all the things that you just said, though, which is extremely interesting, and it's why Students for Life exists. You're training the young minds of America to do what's right in future elections. So I would like to give you my predictions, and as an expert, please comment on them. If you could touch on why this election of all elections of our lifetime is the most important election to make sure every person goes out and supports life. One. Number two, I think if Biden gets in or someone like him, it looks like he's going to be the guy. They're going to force 2 of the Supreme Court justices to retire. Whether they do it or not, they're going to force them to. And then they're going to replace them with people our age. And then you and I will never see Roe v. Wade overturned. So that's another prediction I'd have. Can you please comment on why this election, out of every election that's gone on since you and I have been alive, is the most important one, being with like Donald Trump proving he's the most pro-life president that's ever, that we know of so far since Roe v. Wade. So one, what do you think will happen? 2, why is it important that everybody votes and goes and supports life? And then 3, what do you think the prediction is on your personal opinion?
Well, I think it's very clear what you just said. We always say that this is the most important election in our lifetime. This really is. We are closer than ever before to reversing Roe versus Wade, to having a majority on the Supreme Court who would say, yes, the decision of abortion should go back to the states, that the federal Supreme Court, the Supreme Court in the United States had no, business deciding Roe versus Wade in 1973. We have 5 Supreme Court justices now who are pro-life, but I don't think we have the 5 that we're going to need that are going to be courageous enough to do this. We're going to need the 6th justice. We might even need a 7th justice, because if you know anything about the Supreme Court, they hate to reverse themselves. They hate to ever admit the Supreme Court was wrong. So I think that when you think about the election and all the issues that it comes down to, the Supreme Court is number 1 for me. The president has the privilege to appoint and nominate a Supreme Court justice. The U.S. Senate has the duty to, make sure that Supreme Court justice is qualified, and then vote and to say, yes, this Supreme Court justice is qualified to serve. Those are the positions that we need to be very, very nervous about when we're talking about the election, and really monitoring how our friends and family are saying they're going to vote in the U.S. Senate elections and the U.S. presidential elections. I mean, there's a lot of elections that matter. When you talk about the House of Representatives and defunding Planned Parenthood, we need a pro-life House of Representatives. When we talk about state legislative measures to restrict abortions, that we know, we've had thousands of babies saved in the past 10 years, not because of things Washington, D.C. has passed, but because things have happened at the state capitals. State legislative races matter. But when it comes down to reversing Roe versus Wade, it's going to be all about the president, all about the Supreme Court. And if this election does not go our way, they will do everything possible to stack the Supreme Court to make sure you're right. In our lifetime, Roe versus Wade will not be able to be reversed. And they've been very blatant about this, very blatant. I mean, they're not even, the Democratic Party is not even holding back anymore what its intentions are. It used to be, we would know what the intentions were, but they wouldn't come out and just flat out say it. But now they come out flat out and say it. So I think we need to be equally as loud, saying we vote pro-life first, that there are a lot of issues that we as Catholics care about and that we as Americans should care about. But this is the number 1 human rights tragedy that's happening in our world today. We are called to stop it. What's so frustrating to me is that if we saw the broken bodies of 2,600 children on the street every single night, if when we turned on the news every night and we saw those 2,600 broken bodies, nobody would dare say to you, oh, well, I agree with you on abortion, but there's a lot of other issues. Every American would say, I'm going to vote for the person or the persons that pledge to stop this. I don't want to see 2,600 broken bodies ever again. But because abortion's done behind the closed doors, because we use rhetoric like choice and pregnancy tissue and words to make it sound like it's not killing a baby, it allows us to stop thinking about what abortion really is. So that's what the reality of what will happen if we lose this election. And I think that also answers your question of why you should vote pro-life first too.
So perfectly well said. I mean, you couldn't be more right. And it is a dire situation where we don't want to be holding the bag like the other side. And I said the other side, people that are for abortion did when they thought, because anything can happen, right? I mean, Donald Trump got elected. So my big thing on this is we all have to make sure we go vote. Don't think that it's, you know, a one case before it's over. We're talking with Kristan Hawkins. Kristan, thanks again for giving us the time tonight. We're about to close out. We put her links in the sidebar there for everyone to see. We'll also be posting this conversation. You can see many other conversations with faith-based leaders like Kristan on inspireWord.com. Make sure you go to inspireWord.com and sign up with us. Kristan, thanks again for inviting into your home. You're a mother. You're a leader of one of the most powerful pro-life organizations in the world, in my opinion, and many would agree. What would be your advice to families right now, hanging out, being quarantined? What would you say to them and how they should spend their time? And then whatever you feel called to talk about from an inspiration perspective from a leader of a nonprofit and a mother.
Well, I think if my advice for families is the advice I kind of give myself of put down the work, go play with the Barbies, go make the pie that your son wants, spend the time. I think one of the, you know, greatest blessings that have come out of this horrible tragedy has been the time we've all had with our family that none of us would have expected. Now, I know there's a lot of moms who are like pulling their hair out, trying to homeschool suddenly and do their jobs. I've got many of my team members who are now full-time staff members and full-time school teachers. So it's a very trying time. But I think it's also a time where we've been really able to spend it with our families. And that's time we don't usually have, right? Especially when you think about right now in April soccer season. Right now, you know, my husband should be at one place. I should be at another, you know, taking one from soccer, one to art class, one to ballet. We're always so busy. But now this coronavirus has really forced us to stay at home and slow down. And I think that the devices just cherish this time we have with our family. So yeah, that's my advice.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And of course, we'll take that to the bank. Again, thanks so much for letting us come into your place and hang out with you and him. Let's have a FaceTime styles conversation. Again, Kristan Hawkins is with us. Please follow all the links that we'll be posting. They're posted in the chat and on the website, inspireword.com. Kristan, thank you so much for the work you do. Thank you for founding and bringing Students for Life into the world. God bless you, and we hope to have you on again here. It's after the election's won, and we can talk about how we take care of it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me tonight, and all y'all for tuning in.
Thank you.